When I was a kid, going to school in the 80s, playing video games on a home console meant playing an Atari. I had one cousin with a ColecoVision. Everyone else I knew had a 2600 until they had an NES. Little me was blissfully unaware of the original console war being waged by Atari and Mattel's Intellivision. Hi, I'm Paul, and this is Indie Pop Productions, pop culture from an independent point of view. Today, we're going to unbox and try out the, as of this recording, sold out absolutely everywhere, Intellivision Sprint. In the late 70s, early 80s, Mattel created Intellivision to go head-to-head with the Atari 2600. And while it never really wrested any serious market share from Atari's grasp, it did give them a good scare, and it retains a dedicated fan base to this day. Now, I have zero nostalgia for this thing. Holding a reproduction of this console that meant so much to a bunch of other kids during my childhood does not give me the tinglies, so I had no intention of purchasing one. Convenient, since it's sold out. But I was on Whatnot about a week or so ago doing a little retro game shopping, and they had this on sale as unused but open box. Now, those of you that don't know what Whatnot is, it's basically eBay for live auctions. No one else in the room seemed to have any idea what this thing was, so I ended up with a deal that I just couldn't pass up. A little bit of housekeeping before we get started. We're getting closer and closer to that 100 subscriber mark, so remember to like and subscribe. Once we pass 100, I'll be giving away a GameSir Pocket Taco controller to one lucky subscriber. And for those curious about Whatnot, I'll leave a link in the description below. It's a great and very addictive place to go shopping for retro games and pretty much anything else. If you use my link, you'll get a random credit to get you started of between $10 and $200. Full disclosure, if you use my link, I will also get whatever credit you get, and anything I purchase will be used for this channel. And with that out of the way, let's go get this thing open. All right, box looks okay. A little dinged up in a couple spots, but not too bad. I was actually sent the Whatnot auction that sent it. Did not put it in a different box on top of this one. They just sent this box wrapped. That bothered me a little bit, but it looks okay. No significant damage. We'll see right here that it is open box. That tape has already been opened up, but it's in pretty good condition, all things considered, at least on the outside. Let's see what we're gonna get on the inside. Your typical useless instructions. Still has the foam on it, so that's good. That's a good sign. Let's see. Does that open up? Or yeah, just lift that off the top. Does look like a very classic console. I think they were a little more silvery than gold, but yeah, this looks like it's in good condition. Very nice wood grain on the back. The front, nice. Okay, yeah, those just slide out. These are wireless, which is also not what they were to begin with. The size, I believe, is the same. There used to be a divot back here, sort of an indention that people are a little upset that they can't use for grips anymore. But I do like that it is, oh, it's even got a little bit of a charge, a little blue light going on right there. They just pop right out and right in. Reset, on, off, like that's an actual switch, not a button. That's cool. Very light. You can tell there's no real hardware on this. This is just a little emulation device. Doesn't take cartridges. Cartridges would go in, I believe, up there. But this just has 45 games preloaded, 45 of the more popular ones. I'm assuming all ones that, since Atari now owns Intellivision instead of Mattel, they're all ones that I assume were published by M Network. And so the Mattel had the copyright to them, and now Atari owns them. So you're not going to see any like Namco or Nintendo or anything, Sega, anything like that likely on here. At least not preloaded with the initial 45. And then underneath that, this all does feel like it is sealed correctly. Got an HDMI cable. Let's see. Okay, these are overlays for the games. They have overlays that go on each one of the controllers, much like it would on a 5200 controller. Don't like 5200 controller, blame Intellivision. Apparently after Intellivision and Coleco both came out with controllers that had A bunch of extra buttons and a little keypad. Atari got it in our heads that that was going to be the future. It was clearly not. That was the last console, I believe, that did that. And I think, yeah, more of the same. There's 2 of each, one for each controller. And no power cord. That's nice. I believe the power cord would go right there. That is annoying. Hopefully it takes a pretty standard power cord. I'm going to complain about that. It doesn't have a power cord. It's not just open box. It's missing pieces. So, but not the end of the world. Annoying. Kind of takes me off a little bit, but not the end of the world. I've got plenty of power cords. I'm sure I could find something that fits. Looks like it is just USB-C. So I've got plenty of those. We'll make that work. All right, let's put this back in here, and then we will go plug it into my monitor and see how it works. If you were wondering about the controller, got a little slot here that you could slide that overlay into. Most of them really don't have a lot going on. You can figure it out for yourself. I was wondering about like the little disc. Was the disc, did you spin it? Was it a paddle? But actually no, it's just a D-pad. We're gonna go jump in here and play Boulder Dash. I have never played this before, but it's the one that is on the cover, so I'm assuming it's one of the more popular games. To my understanding, I think you're supposed to collect those little diamonds and just avoid dropping these boulders on you. You're creating these little trenches to get through, and if you create a trench under it or at the wrong angle, the boulder can fall on you. So you've got to get enough diamonds to open the door. But you've got to be careful and obviously survive, because if you die, I think you get set back all the way to the beginning of the level. You lose and I'm gonna lose all my diamonds because I didn't move quick enough. All right, let's see if am I right? Is it gonna set me all the way back? Yeah, you're pretty much just starting over, just like most classic games. That's nothing odd about that. All right, so get that diamond, get out of the way before it falls on me. Ooh, the not very responsive. I really having trouble controlling this little guy. Need these quick movements, but it's kind of hard. This just circle. I think a regular D-pad. I mean, obviously this is the first attempt at anything like this. I shouldn't judge that too harshly, but I don't think they were quite there yet. And they do give you a little bit of a minute to get out of the way, but you've got to be very careful. See, I think I only need 3 more diamonds and I can open it up. See, all right. Yeah, you can see in the top left the diamonds are counting down. So, all right, got a couple more right here, and all right, just gotta get one more. I should be able to open it up. Grab this one, and that one felt quick. All right, that's enough of that. Let's move on to the next game. Now, I'd like to point out that this is a widescreen experience, so you can't like plug this into a CRTV. Everything would be squished on the menu. So they just try to make it a little prettier on the bars. We're gonna play Frog Bug now. This one, you're just jumping back and forth between lily pads to catch the flies and other insects that are flying through the air. Nice colors on this one. This is meant to be a 2-player game, but you can play against the computer itself. Trying to figure out how you actually catch the flies, because I'm hitting the button, my tongue's not going out. Okay, I think you have to be lined up correctly for it to actually work. Your tongue's not going to flick out every time you hit the button. It's going to flick out when it looks like you're actually going to catch a fly. So you can't just flick your tongue out at random. Looks like the days do change. You're going throughout the day. I like that second one was prettier than this third one. But it does actually get a little tiny bit more difficult as you go along as well. The flies get a little harder to catch. The AI opponent's still not very good. This nighttime one, really nice. Oh, that's very pretty colors. I like the black with the green and the blue, especially for a system at this time period. This is really nice colors on this one. I like this one. Simple but very addictive gameplay. We are going to scroll over. I saw Snafu on here, and I want to give this one a try. It looks fun. Again, I think those buttons are just to pick your level. I don't think you actually use those in game, if I understand it correctly. This game appears to basically just be like Tron Light Cycle or Snake, I think Surround. There's a number of games that are the same premise. You're just trying to, block your opponents on their cycles, light cycles if it was Tron Light Cycle, but Snake, anything like that. Make sure that they run into either a wall or into you. Your opponents on this don't seem all that bright, or maybe their controls are just as hard as mine. First round, pretty easy. They pretty much took themselves out. This is one I think would be more fun if you had more than one player, but still, it's a good time. This is, Snake classic concepts. Always have a good time with this one. You really, on a good control, with a good controller, a modern controller, your idea here is you're going to try to trap them, but with this controller is a little harder for me to get those intricate moves on, so really I'm just trying to stay alive until my opponent traps themselves and makes a mistake, which I thought was going to happen, but then I couldn't turn quick enough, so I'm the one that made the mistake. Didn't give him time to trap himself. Sorry, let's go one more round. Let's see. All right, first two, they knocked themselves out fast. They just ran right into each other. So really this pretty quickly turns, against the computer opponent, it turns into a two-player game, because the first two seem to knock each other out really fast. So let's see if I could outlast this guy, survive this guy for just a little while. Try to make as wide of curves as I could. Probably should have gone up, give myself a little extra room. But he's trapped himself pretty well. If I could just keep from slamming into a wall, I think I've got this one. Just stay alive long enough, cut myself a little slack. And yeah, he's about to knock himself out. Yeah, okay, all right, that's enough about that. You guys get the idea. I saw Shark on here, so I went ahead and put the overlay for that one. We're going to give that one a try. I don't know why, but I love fish games, ocean games. So this one is a pretty simple concept. We've seen this on lots of games over the years. You start off as a small fish. You've got to eat the fish that are smaller than you. You eat enough of them, you get bigger, but you've got to avoid the bigger fish because the bigger fish will eat you until eventually you become the biggest fish in the ocean. If you've played more modern AAA games, you may have seen Manhunter the last several years. That one was a fun one. You start off as a small shark. You end up in certain small areas, eat other sharks, gators, and just work your way up into being this monster shark. I love this kind of game. It's probably not the most fun thing to watch, but it's a classic. I'm just going to play it for a few minutes, but I'll get out of it pretty quickly and move on to the next game because it probably gets boring to look at after a while. All right, I saw something over here that said Space Armada, which that looks like Space Invaders. So you know me and Space Invaders. I've got to check this out, see how it plays. Much bigger sprites. They look great. Colors are awesome. This is clearly Space Invaders. The graphics are nice. There's a lot less on the screen, though. There are not many of the aliens on the screen here, so they're not moving very fast. They're pretty easy to hit. I'm sure this is going to ramp up as we go, but as of right now, this is a pretty simple, though more or less faithful clone of Space Invaders. It's interesting. On here, the background changes when you pass a level. I'm wondering if it's the same way on the real consoles, because you're more or less, the box itself is staying the same. Now this picking up a little bit, but it's still, even in these early rounds, it's not really getting a whole lot faster. I mean, this is not challenging, but let's finish this one out. This next round is what I really want to check out. This is where it gets interesting. This is like the odd choices you get in Space Invaders, but instead of choosing it, it's just one of the later levels. Some like all the top ones you can see, and then random ones will appear, but you're not sure what you've cleared out, what you haven't cleared out. You're just shooting random aliens. I'm gonna get my butt kicked pretty quick here. I'm never good at those versions of Space Invaders where I can't see what I'm shooting at. So yeah. I feel like if I grew up with this, I'd love it. But as it is, I feel like I just played some off-brand Atari games with an interesting controller. So let's just go ahead and go through what I liked versus what I'm not quite sold on. I like the graphics. This is only a couple years after the release of the 2600, and the graphics were noticeably better. Frogbug, Snafu, and Shark Shark were all addictively fun games that were significantly more colorful than their 2600 counterparts. And the controller had promise. It's crazy that Atari looked at this and said, "This is the future," then stole the keypad instead of the D-pad. But the bad. For the most part, these games just felt to me like lesser versions of Atari games. The only truly original one out of the bunch that I played anyway was Boulder Dash. I don't think you could have done that the way it was on a 2600, but it was just way too hard to control. I don't know if that was a latency issue due to the emulation or if it was the controller itself, but even in Snafu, I never really felt like I had the control I needed for quick, accurate movements. And these vintage games really relied on quick, accurate movements. It was all about the timing. And sports games. Lots of sports games. It seems like that was Intellivision's bread and butter. That's not a knock against the console. I don't like sports games. So all in all, a nice package that wasn't meant for me. Maybe someday I'll go back and get an original console and experience the games that way, but until then, I'm gonna stick with Atari for my vintage gaming. There is one feature that I didn't touch on today. It comes with the 45 preloaded games, but you can add your own Intellivision ROMs using a thumb drive. So in my next video, I'm going to use the Intellivision Sprint to explore the surprisingly vibrant Intellivision homebrew scene. After that, I think I'm gonna put the Intellivision Sprint up on my eBay page, give someone else a chance to relive their childhood, while giving me a chance to spend a little more money on the channel. I'll put a link to the auction in the description once it's active. As always, thank you for watching. Remember to like and subscribe. We still have that Pocket Taco giveaway coming up. And I'll see you next time.